Morning everybody, good to see you this morning. Day 57, Monday the 13th of July 2020. Still looking at one church. This is our fifth approach to that. And we're turning to the Bible and looking to see what the Bible's got to say about it through the New Testament, of course. We've got the Acts, the Matthew, Mark, Luke and John are the stories of Jesus when he was alive, basically. And then Acts is the story of the early church as it's set up. And then following that are a number of letters that are written to the churches. And then at the end there's a book called Revelation, and there's reference to the church, to churches in there. So that's where we were just looking at. So that in Acts, obviously the key church is where the apostles are based in Jerusalem. And so that's viewed in a sense as the main church, I suppose. And then as you read the letters of Paul, they're always addressed to, except one that's addressed to half of Europe kind of thing, to cities. So to the church in Corinth, to the church in Rome, to the church in Philippi, to the church in Thessalonica, to the church in Ephesus. So that's how so it's not like a faction of the church in, you don't send 3 letters to Ephesus. You just send 1 letter to Ephesus because there's only one church there, isn't there? And then underlining it all is at the end of that kind of era where the Apostle John is in prison somewhere, and he's got a revelation from God. This is thought to be when he was an older gentleman, and he in that revelation he starts it off with letters to 7 churches, all based in the cities. So to the church at Thyatira, to the church at Smyrna, to the church at Philadelphia, things like, so 7, once again there's 7. So we're looking at a government for the church to be citywide. And then whether it's global wide or not, we'll look on another day, but that's my basic proposition for today. It's one church, citywide, with one governance in that city. So that then we're looking at the next big thing I want to say is that the leadership in that city should be it should be by men of that city. So after Paul had planted the churches, as he went out preaching, he people became Christians, and then he came back, retraced his steps to the cities where he preached, and appointed elders from among the people. So that's a key thing to myself in the church, elders from among the people. And my basic understanding of that is, first of all, people aren't doing it for money because it's their people, even though they get paid, they're not doing it for money. And they have nowhere to go. If it all goes wrong, they can't just run away. This is my home, this is where I live, I've got to sort it out because it's all gone wrong. And that's a very strong thing. It's a very strong thing, because if you don't have that, then that minister runs away, and you bring another one in, and he don't like it either. He spends 5 years and he don't like it, so he runs away, and so you never get a strong governance. You never get a powerful governance that because the underlying troubles are always just bubbling around all the time. So that the concept that I believe is taught is that there are elders and deacons. And I guess you would have a if I look at it in terms of what we've got now, we've got various churches in different areas. So each of those churches would have elders and deacons, and under those in the church would be what we saw the other day, apostles, prophets. So they would always be subject to these elders, the key people, and so together they would work it out. And that congregation, being like in Royton, and there'd be another congregation. Well, there's 10 congregations in Royton, so they all need to be talking to one another. So how you organise that, you have some freedom, I suppose, in that, in my mind. But it's that they're all talking together. All of these people are under one governance, so that that if there is any church discipline, somebody's making a mess in your church. You know, at the moment, somebody can make a mess in my church, and I can say, "Sorry, I don't want you to come anymore." You know, they can just, they can just go down to the church next door and cause trouble there as well. You know, and nobody's looking after the whole thing. That's the problem that we've got now. People move around and cause trouble everywhere, and there is no central discipline for making sure we're keeping it clean, and we don't need to do that trouble every single congregation across the town, you know. And just my observation that we don't need a big governance because Jesus is the head with the Holy Spirit communicating to each one of us. Just as I've thought about that, I just thought about our Prime Minister at the moment. They've taken charge of the nation, haven't they? You know, so that for myself, in those early days of 3 months ago, in those early days, I made it my business to sit in front of my television for the reviews that they were doing every day. You know, so there'd be the Prime Minister, and he'd have two advisors with him, wouldn't he? And by that, we understood that they had a council behind them, but these three have now defined how the nation should be governed during this time of crisis. So that demonstrates the principle that I'm talking about. We don't need a big multi government. We just need these trusted people. So they would have kings in the past, and you would want the king to be kind, and he with his councillors would lead the nation well. That's what we're looking for. That's our biblical thing. We need a king. And so Jesus is the king. He is the sovereign, so he puts out what he wants, and then we get what he wants and we live according to what he wants. He wants us to be loving and joyful and peaceful, patient and kind with one another, caring all down across the divide. A little bit more on this tomorrow. Okay, thanks.